After my stepmom framed me for stealing my stepsister's college fund and got me kicked out, my estranged father suddenly wants my help as divorce 8 years later. My name is Jake, and I am 28 years old. 8 years ago, my life was turned upside down when my stepmom, Nicole, framed me for stealing my stepsister's college fund, causing me to get kicked out of my dad's house. It was a betrayal that I could never have seen coming. She painted me as a villain, leaving me no chance to defend myself. But what hurt the most was my dad's unwavering belief in her lies, even though I had done nothing wrong. I was left on my own, rejected by the one person I thought would always have my back. Fast forward to now, and my dad, who had barely been in contact with me since that day, suddenly reached out, not to apologize, not to make amends, but to ask for my help with his divorce from Nicole, the woman who had ruined my life. You can imagine my confusion. Why now? Why after all these years? Why after everything she did to me? When Nicole first entered our lives, I was skeptical, but my dad, a hard-working man who had always been there for me, seemed genuinely happy. I was 20 at the time and still trying to find my way. My mom had passed away when I was young, and my dad's remarriage to Nicole gave him a sense of companionship that I hadn't seen in years. For a while, things seemed fine. Nicole was kind enough at first, though she always had this air of control about her. She had a way of charming everyone, especially my dad, with her sweet demeanor and constant need to take charge. I thought maybe she was just trying too hard to fit in, and maybe I was being unfair. My stepsister, Hannah, was a bit younger than me, but we got along fine. Nothing seemed out of place until the day it all shattered. The story started with something as simple as a fundraiser for Hannah's college tuition. It was a big event, organized by my dad and Nicole, to support Hannah's dream of going to a prestigious university. I was tasked with managing the fundraiser's funds, keeping track of the donations, and ensuring everything went smoothly. There were a lot of moving parts, and I worked tirelessly to make sure everything was in order. But what I didn't know was that Nicole had already planned her move. I never saw it coming. A few weeks after the event, everything fell apart. I came home one afternoon to find my dad and Nicole in a heated argument. At first, I thought it was just another disagreement about something minor. But then my dad turned to me, his face red with anger. He accused me of stealing money from a fundraiser. I was stunned, my heart sinking as Nicole stood there with a smug expression, pointing the finger at me. She had evidence, a set of photos blurry and unclear, showing me near the donation box late one night. She claimed I had taken the money when no one was looking. I tried to explain, but my dad's mind was already made up. Nicole had convinced him I was guilty. There was no room for me to defend myself. He told me to leave. Just like that. No questions asked. No chance to explain what had really happened. Nicole had orchestrated the entire thing, framing me for something I didn't do. I was heartbroken, betrayed by the person I thought I could trust the most. My dad, the one person I thought would always stand by me, turned his back on me without a second thought. I moved out and tried to piece my life together. I struggled, of course. It was hard, being cut off from my family, from everything I had known. But I eventually managed to build a new life for myself. I got a decent job, made new friends, and even began to heal from the emotional wounds that had been inflicted on me. It took time, but I learned to live with the pain. Then, a few months ago, I received a message from my dad. The last time we had spoken was the day he kicked me out of the house. I wasn't sure if I should even open the message, but curiosity got the best of me. He explained that he and Nicole were getting a divorce. He claimed that after all these years, he realized how badly Nicole had treated him. It took everything in me to keep my cool when I read those words. After everything she had done to me, to our family, now he wanted me to help him? I couldn't believe it. After all the years of silence, after Nicole's lies, now he wanted my help? He said he needed me to support him during the divorce proceedings, to help him get the evidence he needed to prove Nicole's deceit. It felt like a slap in the face. Why had he waited so long? Why had he believed Nicole's lies over the truth? I didn't know what to think. Part of me wanted to scream at him for abandoning me all those years ago, for believing in her over me. But another part of me was curious. What had happened to make him realize the truth? What had changed in all these years? It's been weeks since he first reached out, and I'm still trying to make sense of everything. But now, the one thing I know for sure is that I am not going to help him without conditions. He wants my help? He's going to have to earn it. After receiving my dad's message, I didn't know how to feel. Part of me wanted to let it go, move on with my life, and leave the past behind. But something in me, some nagging voice that I couldn't ignore, told me that if I didn't at least hear him out, I might regret it later. After all, this was my father, and despite everything that happened, I couldn't shake the remnants of the love I used to have for him. So I agreed to meet. We arranged to meet at a small cafe, one of those places where you can get a coffee and sit in peace without being interrupted by the world around you. My nerves were all over the place, but I kept a cool exterior as I walked into the cafe, scanning the room for him. When I spotted him sitting in the corner booth, I could hardly recognize the man who once was my rock. His face looked older, worn down by years of regret, and what I could only imagine was the weight of his decisions. His posture was slouched, and there was a kind of emptiness in his eyes. It wasn't just sadness. It was guilt. I sat down across from him, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. He seemed to be waiting for me to speak first, but I wasn't going to make it easy for him. Eventually, he broke the silence. I know you probably don't want to see me, Jake. I've made a lot of mistakes. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to understand that Nicole, Nicole? I cut him off, letting out a bitter laugh. I know exactly where this is going. You want me to help you get revenge on Nicole, right? You finally realize she's the one who destroyed everything between us. He looked down at his hands, avoiding my gaze. It's not that simple, son. I didn't see it. All those years, I thought she was helping me, making things better. But now I see the truth. She was manipulating me the whole time, and I didn't even realize it. I was blind. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. After all this time, he finally woke up. He had been living with this woman who had ruined my life, and now he was ready to acknowledge the truth? I felt a mix of emotions, anger, betrayal, but mostly confusion. Why was he asking for my help now? After all these years? You want me to help you get proof of her lies, don't you? I asked, keeping my voice calm but cold. You want me to help you take her down after everything she did to me? After she made sure I never had a chance to explain myself? After she framed me for something I didn't do? He winced at my words, and I could tell that they stung more than I intended. But I didn't care. I'm not doing this for you, Dad. Not unless you understand what you did to me. Do you even realize how badly you hurt me? How you just tossed me aside like I didn't matter? Do you know what it felt like to be abandoned by the one person I thought I could trust? The silence between us grew heavier. My dad seemed lost for words, and I wasn't sure if he even knew how to fix this. He didn't try to interrupt. Instead, he just looked at me, his expression a mix of regret and shame. Finally, he spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. I know I can't change what happened, but I've learned the truth. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to help me stop her from destroying other lives. Help me expose her for who she really is. I sat back in my chair, processing his words. He wanted my help now, but it wasn't just about revenge. It wasn't even about him anymore. It was about protecting other people from the same manipulation and deceit that he had fallen victim to for all these years. But despite my anger, despite the years of pain, I couldn't deny that I wanted justice too. I wanted her to pay for what she did to me, and if it meant helping my dad take down Nicole, then maybe, just maybe, I could do it. But it was going to take more than just an apology to make that happen. If you want my help, you're going to have to prove to me that you actually understand what happened, Dad. I said, my voice steady but firm. I'm not doing this just because you're my dad. I'm doing it because Nicole destroyed everything, and if you're serious about making things right, then you'll have to show me that you're willing to make up for it. He nodded slowly, as though finally understanding the weight of my words. I'll do whatever it takes, Jake. I'll prove to you that I'm not the man I was. I'll show you I'm willing to make things right. I didn't know if I believed him yet, but I wasn't ready to completely close the door. I would help him, on my terms. The days that followed our meeting were a blur of mixed emotions. I had agreed to help my dad, though I wasn't fully sure why. Maybe it was a faint hope that he could still be the father I remembered, or maybe it was a desire for a closure that kept me tethered to this tangled web of lies. Either way, I found myself looking into Nicole's life, her past, her connections, and everything that could reveal her true nature. At first, it seemed like a fool's errand. Nicole had been careful, meticulous in covering her tracks over the years. She had a way of weaving lies that made them sound like the truth, and she always knew how to control a situation to make herself look like the victim. But as I delved deeper, I started noticing things. Little inconsistencies that didn't add up. People who had always been afraid to speak up about her. Until now, one evening, after a long day of research, I found something that stopped me in my tracks. A letter hidden in the back of an old family album my dad had kept. It was from years ago, a time when I was still living with them. The letter was from a lawyer, and it was dated just before my mom passed away. The contents were chilling. It detailed the terms of a trust my mom had set up for me, one that Nicole had manipulated my dad into accessing without me knowing. The lawyer had even stated that the trust had been altered in ways that weren't in my best interest. Nicole had been quietly siphoning off money from the fund, making sure I was left with nothing when I needed it most. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. All those years of struggling, of feeling abandoned, had been manipulated by Nicole for her own gain. I could feel the anger rising inside me, but something else gnawed at me too. The deep sense of betrayal that Nicole had not only destroyed my relationship with my dad, but also used my very future to line her pockets. That night, I showed the letter to my dad. His face, once full of hope that things could be fixed, faltered when he saw the proof laid out before him. His eyes widened in shock, disbelief, and guilt. I didn't say anything at first. I let the silence speak for itself. Finally, he whispered, I never knew. I had no idea. I know, I said, my voice quiet but filled with a mixture of sadness and rage. You were too blinded by her charm to see the truth. You let her manipulate you and me for years. I don't know how you can look at yourself and not hate what you allowed to happen. Dad hung his head. For the first time in a long time, he didn't try to justify his actions. There was no defense, no excuse, just a cold, hard truth. He had been a fool, and so had I forever trusting him again. But the part that stung the most wasn't just a betrayal. It was a realization that Nicole had been playing me and my family this entire time. She had carefully positioned herself as a perfect wife for my dad, playing the role of the loving stepmother, while secretly undermining everything that mattered to me. I wasn't just going to let her get away with this. Now, you see what I've been trying to tell you, I said, my voice firm and steady. This isn't about some petty revenge anymore. This is about justice. We need to expose her for who she really is. It's time to show the world that Nicole isn't the angel she's pretending to be. Dad nodded slowly, but his eyes were filled with doubt. I don't know if I can do this. Nicole, she's not what I thought she was, but I don't need you to apologize. I interrupted, my voice sharp. What I need is for you to take action. We have the evidence now. It's time to make her pay for everything she's done. It was in that moment that I realized just how far I was willing to go. I wasn't going to let Nicole destroy my future, my family, and everything I'd worked for. She had manipulated my father, lied to everyone around her, and taken advantage of me for years. She wouldn't get away with it. Not this time. I spent the next few days gathering everything I could find on Nicole, emails, bank statements, and anything else that would prove her deceit. As much as I hated it, I knew that this was the only way to put an end to her reign of manipulation. With the evidence in hand, I began drafting a plan to confront her and expose everything to my family. When the day finally came, my dad agreed to be by my side, though I could see he was still conflicted. He didn't know what to expect. But I wasn't about to let Nicole slip away again. Not after everything she had done to tear my family apart. We showed up at her house, and the confrontation was as intense as I had imagined. Nicole stood there, stunned at the sight of us, clearly not expecting this kind of challenge. What is this about? She asked, feigning innocence. We know what you've been doing, Nicole, I said, my voice steady and unyielding. You've been using my father and me to get everything you want. Your lies end now. Her eyes flickered with panic, but she quickly masked it with a smile. This is absurd, she said. You have no idea what you're talking about. I have the proof, I said, handing her the documents. The truth is out, Nicole. You're done. The look of realization in her eyes was almost satisfying. For the first time in years, I saw fear in her eyes. It wasn't the kind of fear that came from being caught, but the kind that came from knowing she was about to lose everything. And as I stood there, watching her crumble, I knew that the battle wasn't over. But it was a step forward, one I had been waiting for my entire life. The aftermath of that confrontation was far from easy. Nicole, as expected, did not go down quietly. She was relentless in her attempts to manipulate the narrative, using every tactic in the book to try and spin the situation in her favor. She started calling friends, family members, and even people I barely knew, spreading lies about me and painting herself as a victim. The more she spoke, the more the truth about her unraveling deceit became apparent to those around her. She claimed I had fabricated the whole thing out of jealousy, that I was only trying to sabotage her happiness. But people were starting to see through her facade. Still, she persisted. Every time someone asked her about the situation, she came up with a new excuse, a new sob story. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly to myself as I watched her struggle to maintain control. It was almost tragic how she thought she could keep deceiving everyone without anyone noticing. She had been so sure of her hold over my dad, over me, and over their relationship. But now, the cracks were beginning to show, and with every passing day, her control over the situation slipped further. As for my dad, things were complicated. He had spent years trying to rebuild his life after losing my mom, and in his desperation, he had clung to Nicole as a way to move on. But in the wake of all that had happened, he couldn't deny the truth anymore. The man I had known as a kid was starting to come back. The father who had stood by me during the hardest moments of my life, who had tried his best to support me, was slowly reemerging from the haze of guilt and betrayal that had clouded his judgment for so long. It wasn't easy for him. He had invested so much in Nicole and their relationship. There was a lot of pride to swallow, a lot of anger to process. For a long time, I could see the inner conflict written on his face. He wanted to believe in her. He wanted to believe that the life they had built together was real, that it was all worth it. But in the end, he realized what she had done, and the weight of that realization was crushing. He had been so caught up in his grief and guilt after my mom passed away that he had ignored the signs, allowed himself to be blinded by Nicole's manipulative charm. And now, he was left to pick up the pieces. For me, the apology didn't come easily. My dad had spent years unknowingly hurting me, and just saying sorry wasn't enough. But over time, he showed me with his actions that he was willing to make amends. He made sure to include me more in his life, reached out when he sensed I needed support, and most importantly, he stopped letting Nicole control the narrative. The emotional distance between us started to close, slowly but steadily. It wasn't without setbacks. We had our fights, moments when I felt the old resentment creep back in. There were times when I wondered if I would ever be able to forgive him fully. But I realized that forgiveness wasn't just about letting go of the past. It was about moving forward, together, and while it was a painful process, it was necessary for both of us. The end of Nicole and my dad's marriage wasn't the dramatic scene I had once envisioned. It wasn't a public, messy divorce with accusations flying every which way. Instead, it was a quiet, almost anticlimactic ending. Nicole tried to fight it, tried to manipulate him one last time, but it was clear that my dad was done. He was tired of living in a lie, tired of trying to hold on to something that was never real. The emotional toll it took on him was evident, But it was also clear that this was the best decision for both of them. Nicole had used him long enough, and now it was over. As for me, I took my time processing everything. I needed space, needed to heal from the wounds that had been inflicted by the people I trusted most. I spent more time focusing on my own growth, on my own life, and less on the toxicity that had surrounded me for so long. I began to rebuild my life, step by step, and eventually, I started to feel like I was on solid ground again. My relationship with my dad, while still fragile at times, began to heal. We worked through the years of hurt, and while things would never go back to how they once were, I realized that wasn't necessary. The truth had come out, and though it had taken a lot of time and pain, it had set us free. We had a chance to start over, to rebuild a relationship based on honesty and trust. Nicole, on the other hand, didn't fare as well. She tried to move on quickly, but there was no escaping reality of what she had done. She had burned too many bridges, manipulated too many people, and in the end, she was left alone. Her charm was no longer enough to protect her from the consequences of her actions. People saw her for what she truly was, and that was something she could never recover from. I know it's not over. Healing rarely is. But as I look back on everything that happened, I know one thing for sure. I'm stronger for it. I've learned to trust myself, to stand up for what's right, and to never let anyone try to control my story again. And while I can't undo the past, I can move forward knowing that I've learned the most important lesson of all. Truth always wins in the end. If you enjoyed this story, do not forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.